Okay, we are live. Oh, let me get this mic fixed real quick. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Headset in here. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me make sure my settings are good. Mic check. All right. Okay, welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be covering Aiden Clune. I think most of you guys are familiar with this case. If you're not, I will recap it. We have been searching for him nonstop in the past 2 months, and recently in the past few days. We've gone out twice now. And we've got even more leads that we're going to share today. Even some information I just came across just before I went live that really kind of flips everything up on its head. It still points us right to where we're at. If he's out there, I am not kidding. I think we are literally on top of him. And it's just a matter of days in the next times we go out, if he is out there, that we may find him. Again, there's still definitely a possibility he could have made it out. Again, I will explain his story for anyone that's not familiar. But welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My wonderful mods, welcome. Copper Horse, Jennifer. I'm sure Dee and Karen will be in here, hopefully. But let me get started with just a quick recap for Aiden, for anybody that's not familiar with the story. And then we'll catch up on the last two trips. I was trying to do a live on Monday, but I was just too sore. And I'll explain why here in a minute. But I really believe that we're this close to finding him. We'll go over that here in just a minute. But let's
Aiden Clune.
just play a 2-minute clip of his little of Aiden Clune's story here, and then we'll get into what we did the last two trips and why we believe that we are so close to finding him. Now, this isn't the whole backstory, but this is just a brief recap. Let me put this here.
Aiden Clune, just 19 years old, who graduated the year before, was living in California. Sadly, with a tragic death in his family, Aiden began suffering from some kind of mental health issue, and in late April of 2022, he told his mother he needed to get out of town for a while. His plan was to stay with some friends or his dad, but ended up leaving the next day for Utah, where he was going to stay with his grandparents. After reaching Utah and getting closer to his grandparents, Aiden all of a sudden got paranoid and was acting very odd. He would tell his grandparents and a friend that he was now heading to Washington and sped off. He would stop in Wendover on April 26 to get gas and drive another 77 miles to Wells, Nevada, where Aiden would spend the night at a Motel 6. On April 27th, Aiden got up early and checked out. Aiden would then actually head south instead of north, opposite of Washington, on Highway 93, where all of a sudden he would pull his truck over to the side, get out of his truck, lock the door, and walk towards the ridge of the mountain. Shortly later, a highway patrol officer would pull over. They would follow his tracks for several miles, but all of a sudden, they just disappeared. He has not been seen.
Okay. I do need to update that. I realize I said he locked his door, but he actually did not lock his door. His door was actually open when they got there. Sure my chat is updated. There we go. Sounds like he was possibly withdrawing or having a chemical imbalance. Who knows? Mental health is, man, there's many cases we've covered where there's some kind of mental health aspect to it, and it just can't explain it. But yeah, who knows? But here's a picture of when they had showed up to his truck shortly later that day. As you can see, it was around almost 9 a.m. when they came across his truck. The passenger door was open. There was things strewn out. So it appears that maybe he was just pulling over to maybe catch his breath, maybe figure out where he was going to do. Unfortunately, we just don't know. But they believe it's possible he wasn't far when the officer had arrived. And then maybe when the officer clearly arrived and maybe he saw that officer, maybe any kind of mental health or paranoia that he may have been experiencing, that may have unfortunately caused him to then start wandering off into this this vast valley, which this drone footage here is kind of where his truck. This is just off the highway here. There's a barbed wire fence because there's there's some ranches out there. So there's cattle and stuff. He fence is easily accessible to get over, and it seems that he cleared the fence. And so they started tracking him on the second day. So he had already been missing for 24 hours, more or less. And so they started tracking him. And as you can see, these pins that I've got here are his footprints that they tracked. So I've got a hold of his case files. And that's why I've came across more and more new information, at least to me. And so it kind of paints more of a picture of what's going on. So here's his footprints that they tracked on the 28th. So one day after he went missing, he went over what is called Palamino Ridge, which is this thing here. And they were able to follow his tracks for a bit, and then I don't know if it was due to because unfortunately in April it was raining. Sometimes in that elevation you would get snow. And so, for whatever reason, they had lost his tracks on the 28th. But then they would resume. But here is a picture. Here's where I'm driving into the valley here. And that is Palomino Ridge in front of me. And then just to kind of show how vast how much he had traveled. But that's Palomino Ridge there. And as we pan left, he goes into Cherry Creek Mountain Range, which is going to be over here. So he traveled many, many miles, but they had lost his prints on the 28th. But they went back out the next day on the 29th, and they picked him up again. Now, unfortunately, unlike the 28th, they didn't. So on the 28th, they had like coordinates for the tracks that they found, but unfortunately on the 29th, they didn't put down all of his tracks. But we do know that he did get tracked up and across this valley in this peak over here, and he would go into what's called Cottonwood Creek Canyon, and we'll look at that. And that's this here. And there's actually two canyons. So you have Cottonwood Creek, which is here, and then you have Silo Canyon, which goes to the right here. But they believe he came down here and then cut across in front of us, just like this. And then he then would wander. Now, what's interesting is as he went down into here, notice on the left, you can kind of see what's kind of a dry creek bed, but there is fresh water pumps out of an aquifer kind of to the left of where we're looking. So it's kind of interesting. He did actually make it what looks like to be fresh water, a freshwater source. But after the 29th, they lost his tracks again, and I believe they didn't pick up for another 2 days because of the weather. But then they would come out May 1st. So they had kind of went out on the 29th of April, then the 30th. I'm assuming weather permitted, they did not go out. Then May 1st, they went back out and they started picking up his prints left and right. And that's in this valley here. And one of the things Aiden was doing is he would go barefoot sometimes, and he would do what's called a T, and so they would see his tracks go kind of they'd be following his tracks, and then they noticed that he walked left and he walked right and doubling over his tracks, almost as if he was trying to throw them off. And they noticed that, and they put that in the report that they came across a lot of T's. So it's possible that's why they lost his tracks, is because he was maybe trying to throw them off. Plus, he would take off his shoes, and they'd get some either barefoot or him wearing his sock foot prints. And so he kind of just changed things up. It's most likely he was probably trying to throw them off, but very strange. But on May 1st, they would pick up his tracks, and as you can see here, I know it's probably kind of hard on with the phone, but there's a green area here. This is where the aquifer is at, and it comes down, and there's actually water lines, and there's kind of a creek. Sometimes it dries up, just kind of depends on the weather, or the year, or the time of year. But there is fresh water up here. But they would continue to track him, and then eventually they would lose his tracks up on this ridge here. And some of these last tracks were apparently, a few of them were barefoot tracks, or sock footprints, and his last track was just around this area here. And so I think we did a live on Friday, and we told you guys that we were going to go up and we were going to search this peak because his last footprints, or prints in general, were going east to west, basically as if he was going to go over this ridge, or over this peak, and it's above 8,000 feet above sea level. And so we did do that, and we'll show some footage. But man, it was rough. Jennifer, is it possible he went to harm himself? I don't know. I hope not. But yeah, we just don't know. I think he got paranoid when the officer had pulled over, and maybe he just wanted to run off and maybe, get away from him, and then maybe come back to his truck. But unfortunately, they took his truck. They would repo it later on that day, which, the family is really upset because if he did make it back out, he wouldn't have his vehicle. But anyway, so our trip on Saturday was to clear this area because we thought, okay, his last footprints were east to west. As we're looking, east is kind of to the right, west is to the left, and we thought there's a chance that maybe he went over and wouldn't be too far because our other lead at the time, we talked about his phone ping. Even though we have these two rings, a 60-mile ring and a 65-mile ring, and that's a lot of area that his phone could have gone off. There's only few spots that you actually get service in there. And it just so happens to be where his last footprints are is where there's few spots where you can actually get cell service for Verizon, which is what he had. So our plan was to go up and check this ridge and see if we could find anything. And we learned a lot by going up this ridge. Keep in mind, this ridge that we go up is above 8,000 feet above sea level. It was rough. And I'll have tons of stuff. But we had saw a few caves when we went on the couple weeks ago. When we went on the west side, we were looking up at this peak, which is one of the tallest peaks in Cherry Creek Mountain Range, at least in this area. It looked like there were some caves. There was some rock formation that kind of stuck out of the peak side, and it looked like there was caves. And we wondered, well, maybe he went up and decided to take shelter in the cave because the phone ping that they got, this is his last phone ping, was at 8:17 p.m. And we've talked about this before. Unfortunately, at late April, that time, that time of the year, it would be getting dark. And sadly, in this area, the temperature just drops rapidly. And the higher elevation you are, you've got a wind factor that's going to make it even more colder. And it even snowed. As a matter of fact, I think maybe April 30th, the reason why they didn't search is I believe it might have even snowed that day or rained severely. So there's many elements. Again, there's still a possibility he could have made it out, but we're just kind of going off the probability of him not making it out and what are our best clues that we can go off. So here is us going out Saturday, and we were zigzagging going up this peak. It was really rough. Thank goodness to Gail Hurd's staff that she gave me, my the walking stick, saved my life, literally. It was much steeper than we predicted, and we learned so much by climbing this ridge. Keep in mind, we were fresh. We drove right close to the ridge, and we went from basically the bottom of the ridge to the peak, and we were exhausted, absolutely wiped. And so by doing this, we figured there was just no way Aiden, not saying that's impossible, but we're like 99% sure that he did not go over this. It took us, I want to say, and it doesn't look that big, it took us 2 hours to peak this. And it doesn't look that big. So just for us to do 2 hours when we're fresh, we just parked at the ridge at the bottom of this thing. We didn't hike through a valley, multiple valleys. And when we got to the peak, we were wiped. So we are pretty confident he did not go over that. So we can exclude him going over this area. Again, still possible, but we were fresh and it took us 2 hours. And by that time, if he did that, it would be like almost 11, almost midnight. And I don't know how you would make it out. It would be so cold up there because the wind factor, it can be no wind and all of a sudden it just ramps up. Matter of fact, when we went up here, we were so lucky. Man, we timed this just right. We had no idea. It said the weather was supposed to be just fine that day. There was actually a storm that came in, and we barely made it down to the truck just in time, and it was thunderstorms. But the wind kicked up, and boy, we were lucky. Al Monk, many thanks for your kind welcome. Been following Aiden's heartbreaking case since the start. I am impressed by all the efforts and work of Chris. Thank you. And it's not just me. There's many people that, there's Ty here. There's Bria, who's been on the recent searches with me. The family's been out there searching. So many people. And then, of course, you guys. This is my job as a YouTuber. And this is my main source of income. So you guys make this possible. We wouldn't be able to do this without your help. But we're going to talk about the new lead today, which is kind of a bittersweet lead. But before we get there, let's just talk about this peak a little bit more. And then we'll talk about what we did because we went out there yesterday. But as I told you, we thought we had saw some caves. Because there are some rock formations at this peak. And there is a small little cave. Now, I wouldn't say it's really a cave. It's more like just like a 5-foot hole in the rock formation. But it's deep enough that you could take cover in. And we were really wondering, he might have went in there to take cover. So I'm going to play this. But here we are. This is at anywhere from like 8,200 feet to 8,500 feet above sea level. Um, it was brutal. It was beautiful. It was well worth it. Um, and it definitely, because there's always been a question: did he go over this? Considering where his last footprints were, did they just lose his tracks and he went up and over and west and came out and went into Ruby Valley? But now after us doing this, and we were fresh, and how pooped we were, and just how long it took us, tells us I just there's no way he made it over. But I'm gonna play this drone footage, and so I've got tons of footage for the members and Patreons. Oh my gosh, some amazing shots. So here's this cave thing, and I'm gonna show you guys the drone footage, and then we'll talk about the new lead. Um, but yeah, this is at the top of the peak. This is where we were at up here. His last footprints were here. We zigzagged up here, up this yellow, and then we just kind of went up the peak. Here's me taking the drone up at 8,000 feet, or above 8,000 feet. We actually saw wild mustangs, which was cool and scary at the same time because they're probably the most dangerous thing out there, or one of the more dangerous things out there. Wild horses. But they were up here. They were literally by this formation too. It was pretty wild. I do have footage of it. I just think it's on my phone. I gotta find it, but it was really neat. It was looked like two adult horses and a younger horse. But here's that cave formation. As we can see inside of it. Not very deep. You would be able to take cover in that, but I don't see any remains. Nothing in there. But it was nice to at least clear that out. Incredible. Where would I ever see this if not right now? Thank you, Zenone. Um, it was a beautiful sight. Again, it wore the heck out of us. It was brutal, but it was beautiful. Um, I definitely don't have any urge to go climb Mount Everest. I feel like this was our Mount Everest, and I don't need to go climb a peak anymore. This was enough. So we're going to talk about this valley because again, this is. Let me just pause this here from this. Oop. Come on. Yeah, some amazing shots. Now I can't. That's looking over the west side, which we did hike that 2 weeks ago. And then this is the other side. This is kind of on the west side of the peak. Um, there wasn't really any caves. When we were looking back, when we climbed up on the west side, it looked like there were some caves in these rock formations. Yeah, these ones right here. But they're not really, again, they're just kind of hollowed out a little bit. Um, but no caves. So at least we could cross that off. All right, so let me take a sip. Now to why we think we are so close. Yeah, it is beautiful. Boy, and we got lucky. Like I said, there was a thunderstorm that came in as we started descending the peak, and I swear to God, right when we made it to the truck, lightning, thunder, heavy rain. I mean, we were really lucky. All right, so again, I was going through the paperwork, case files. Gosh, there's a lot to this case, and there was something that was really something that stuck out, but I didn't notice it until recently, and that is a canine report. This happened on May 14th, so this would have been a little over 2 weeks after he went missing. Now, I forgot, but at this time, I think, I'm not sure what date, but they've eventually declared it as not a rescue operation, but a recovery operation. So, unfortunately, that's not the best wording. And so, this was a canine report by a canine handler, Ann Moser. And she had been out, so they had certain areas that they were working on. So, the problem with Aiden Clune's search, just in general, for the entire thing since he went missing, is they've never had enough people out there. They haven't had more than like maybe 10, 15 people. They've never been able to really grid search. And I apologize, you probably can't see this very well, but I will kind of do a diagram of what this kind of shows. But they've never really been able to do grid search, which is huge. They followed his tracks. They eventually lost his tracks, and then they brought some people out, whoever could make it out. And they would follow certain lines, maybe wash. But if you look at their searches, majority of them are not really grid searches. Which is, unfortunately, it's not their fault. They just never had enough people. But in this summary, now I thought this was a canine handler, like canine scent dog, but this is actually a cadaver dog. I didn't realize this until earlier today. The summary says we were able to sufficiently cover holes in search areas, and it says area N. So there's certain areas that they would label a letter, and this lady, she said she searched N, O, and L. And all those areas are right here, and I'll show you on the map. So we'll just pull it up right here. Areas N, O, and L are kind of all right here. And the best landmark to have is this burn area right here. We are just kind of south of the burn here. And so this handler with the cadaver dog said that she had searched N, O, and L. And in this short summary, it said probability of detection was medium to high, with lower probability as Oscar tired and did not range. So it says the detection was medium to high of the scent, but unfortunately her dog had got tired. And in this, in some of the reports with these graphs that show where the trackers or just the searchers had searched, there was these arrows, and I was wondering what these arrows meant. I couldn't make them out. And I didn't have this report at the time, so I was kind of wondering what these arrows were, and now I know. And that is most likely the direction that the supposed cadaver dog was getting the scent from. So here's the area that we searched. We peeked this whole area up here. And we now know, even though some of his last footprints was going east to west, I think maybe he was trying to go up that and realized by that time it's a lot of work, and he probably had little to no provisions. He may have found that source of water to at least hydrate himself, but now it's getting late. And he is in the area where the cell phone does turn on. There is like this weird line that you can kind of get your like one bar if you got Verizon that kind of runs along. And what's interesting is we could not get a signal up on the peak at all. None of us got a signal. which we were really surprised. So that tells us even more he was probably down more in this valley, even though he did kind of wander up here. So what I've shown you here is just kind of since the graphic that I had up before, you guys probably can't see it. So this is kind of just a reenactment of the page before and some of what people had grid searched, or search, I should say. And so this is kind of what it looked like. And they had different colors for each person. And they had like what's called like Onyx Hunt or Caltopa. And that's basically like a GPS system that, so you walk, it tracks your movement. So they can go, so they go out searching, they come back, it loads into this app. Everybody else is using the same app. And then they just all load it into the same, because it's all in the same app. They can just pull from it, and then they can put together, where everybody's been at, which is amazing. But as you can see here, again, this is just kind of a reenactment. This is kind of what they had. And as you can see, for anybody that's familiar, a grid search is something like this right here. Let me just pull up Paint real quick. So this would be a proper grid search where you go up, down, and that's a proper grid search. But as you can see, nobody, oops, that's too big. Nobody else really did grid searches. And again, it's just because they didn't have enough people. But that's a huge problem because they could have easily missed, if Aiden is out there, they could have easily missed him because I think maybe they were trying to pick up his tracks again. And so they were just kind of doing, maybe they were either following certain, so there's like trails, there's animal trails that run all along inside these areas here that you can't really see from this far out. And then there's also what's called washes when, the snow starts to melt and it'll form little washes that come down. And you can tell that they were kind of following them. And then there's a few dirt roads that also kind of run up in here as well. But again, the biggest problem is they didn't grid search it. So Aiden could be in any one of these little spots. But what I thought was great is there was at least one grid search, and that was done just on the south side, which you guys can't see because I'm going to. There was one done at the south of the burn, which makes me happy, which tells me at the very least he's most likely not in there because they did a proper grid search. And his last footprints were here. They did a lot of searching along the road and just barely off the road. So that kind of forms a natural barrier where they didn't pick up his tracks. Doesn't mean he could have cut through somehow. But to me, we're going to look at the alleged cadaver dog scent and where she was kind of headed. Yeah, you can't miss with the grid search. Yeah, it's huge. And so this is where the cadaver dogs, because they have these arrows on this map, which I didn't realize. I thought it was the scent dog, but this is a cadaver dog. And on the top of the report, it says birds circling. Now, that still could mean that, the birds were circling. There's tons of animals that die. There's bones everywhere. But she said she was headed, oops, let me back it up, right in this area. And I think I might have put one too many arrows, but I think I went about this far here. And then supposedly her dog got tired. And if you were to pull up that map, which I'll have to get a better picture of, you'll notice that there's so much area that they didn't grid search that he could definitely be in here. And so we have another clue. We have his last footprints that go up here. We have the cell phone at 817, which, again, just looking at it from a worst case scenario, It's 8:17, and you can only get a ping in this kind of this weird. It's almost. Let me pull it up here. Almost like this, because we were testing it because this is where we were searching yesterday. Um, we still got a lot to search, but it's weird. You almost get this signal in this, like almost. It's not quite due south of the tower, but just pretty close. But you won't get a signal if you're over here. You won't get a signal if you're up here. You definitely don't get a signal when you're on the peak. So that's why, even though there's a 60 mile to 65 mile range that his phone pinged, we know that there's only slivers and little pockets that you can get a phone ping, and it's no coincidence that he was in the area where we were all at in the past weekend and yesterday, where you get this little pocket where you have a signal. So again, with them not doing a grid search in this area, you have the cadaver dog kind of hitting towards this area. And we had searched a good portion here. So I'm going to show you what we did yesterday. But we really feel like if he's out there, we're any day now. I really think he could be in this square right here. And we've covered a portion of it. Richardson and Chris, orthophoto drone search. That works great for us for fires. Takes a pic every second plus metadata with coordinates. Creates a full 3D map. We love that tool. Oh, yes. I've used one. Wasn't that one? It was Drone Deploy. I want to say it's Drone Deploy. I'm not sure. I think it was Drone Deploy. They have something. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it takes pictures and it maps it out 3D. Yeah, it's amazing. And we may do something like that. But so we believe, but unfortunately, there's just 3 of us. Even though technically this isn't that big compared to everything that he has traveled, if we look back at his path here, still big, but we feel it's just a matter of time because they didn't grid search this, and we have this scent dog coming in here. We feel like we're just a search or 2 away if he's out there from finding him. And not gonna lie, I am burnt, bitten up left and right from everything. Especially when we climbed this. God, the bugs were so bad when we peaked this. And then, yeah, just burnt, bitten, and tired, but we'll recover. But we did a lot of droning in this area. I didn't cover the entire area that I wanted to, but I covered quite a bit. Again, so as you can see, as I just zoomed up, so just to show you guys, oops, went back too much. Okay, so that right there is the burn. That's the south of the burn. That is us looking at this right here. Remember, they did a grid search right here. The scent or cadaver dogs were leading this way, and we know that they didn't really grid search this area here. They did a lot of searching just off the dirt roads here. So I think if there was tracks, there's a good possibility they would have picked them back up. I don't think he went over this after us climbing that. We drove literally right here. There's like a road that takes you about right here. We went up. It took us almost 2 hours. And we were just exhausted. And I think he may have tried to go up and realized it was too much and tried to come back down. And I think that would have been around 8 p.m. He would have gotten the phone ping. You may have hit this like little spot where there's you get the signal, and then maybe traveled, and then unfortunately, again, in a worst case scenario, just the elements, temperature dropping, you just couldn't make it out. And they just did not grid search this area. And so, anyway, that is this area right here, and even this area here. And so, we believe everything that we have researched and have searched ourselves, everything leads us to believe that he is somewhere right in this area. We could be on top of him and we don't even know it. So, unlike previous searches, because not only did we do drone search, we did ground search yesterday. We did something different because we know we're right there. And I'll show you guys here in a minute. Let me get the comments real quick. But we did a couple things different yesterday. Sensei, thanks for all you do, Chris. You're definitely getting closer. I really hope you find Aiden soon and his family can have him home. I do agree. Again, I really hope he made it out. And there's certainly a possibility with how much he traveled. He there's always that possibility. But going on worst case scenario, we're going to track down all those leads in the worst case scenario. And if he's out there, this is the area. And so we bought surveyor's tape, which is biodegradable. It's very thin, but it's very bright. And we walked side by side. And we basically put surveyor's tape almost every other tree. And basically we grid searched. And then we used these. So we would go almost a mile in. And then we would then double back. But obviously we would move, 30 feet over. And then come back the other way. And then do the same thing, tying these pieces of surveyor tape is what they're called. Again, they're biodegradable on the branches. That way we know that area has been searched. And we won't have to double back or, when we go back out there, we won't be tripping over areas we've already searched. Because if he is out there, unfortunately, there wouldn't be much of Aiden. Maybe some clothing. And this is just kind of going off, remains that were found in other cases. But after 2 years, sometimes some of the smaller bones get scattered around. But yeah, so that is what we did. And then there were some weird things that happened, but let me get to chat for a minute. Oh, Fly Girl. Oh, that was this cadaver dog handler. Her name was Amy. And she was someone that was out there for only 1 day, I guess, which is a shame because her dog got tired. Because they may have, if they brought that dog out, they may have found him. But unfortunately, in the report, it just says the dog got tired. And then I know that it was just tough because they would get days that were good, and then there was days that would just snow or rain really bad, and it just gets kind of dangerous out there because you're kind of at a higher elevation, and you're just kind of far from any civilization that if anything goes wrong, you want to be as safe as possible. Rainy Days, member for 24 months, been a supporter of the channel for 2 years. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Rainy Days. Again, I just ask if you guys would like to support donations, Venmo, PayPal, will truly help us. Um, we're not going to give up, but the only way we can do this is with your guys' support. But we really feel like if he's in this area, we're only a day or two. We covered a lot of ground yesterday, but there's still, I would say we probably covered. Now I'll continue playing the stuff and I'll talk about a few other things that happened. So our focus is. Oops, not that's the wrong one. And we may actually, now that we came across this report, which I thought was a scent dog, we may want to focus on this area when we go back out there. Because if we look at the report here, notice that they grid searched here, but there's so much open area right here that they missed. They did quite a bit here because this is where his tracks were. And so I think they were trying to pick him up. So there was quite a bit of searching here. Yesterday, we searched this and a little bit of this right here. We kind of went at an angle because I had seen something from my drone. Ended up being like a rock or a part of a tree, but it looked funny because I was laying on the ground. But I would say just yesterday, just with the three of us, whoa, that was not what I wanted to do. I'd say we probably covered, let me get this one out of the way. And this is like holding hands when we're doing this. I would say we probably covered something like that. And that's a lot. Whoa, I'm hitting the wrong button. That's a lot to do for just 3 people. But when we go back out, again, we didn't know about the cadaver dog part. The fact that it was going over here, but the dog got tired. And we know that they grid searched here kind of makes it like a bottleneck that it really makes me think he could be in this area here. And I flew the drone in most of that area, and I haven't even been able to check it yet because I've had so much to do, and I got home real late last night and probably got up 5 hours ago, so I still have so much more to go through. But for the members and Patreons, I couldn't tell you this would be the most important footage that I could upload. I would love to upload it to the normal, just the regular viewers, but I don't want to be uploading drone footage that has a I won't say high probability, but has a good chance to may have flying over, even though it might be skeletal or just close. I don't want to have my viewers find out or see that if it was Aiden, it'd be my viewers finding him first, and the last person to find out is the family. And I don't want that to happen. So I feel better with it being with the members and Patreons. At least it's 100 people versus many, many more. Where if by chance that footage did have something that I flew over, I'd feel better with minimal amount of people finding out before the family does, because we want to do everything the proper way. Because if we were to find something, we would be calling obviously the family and the sheriff and let them take over things and then go from there. Other weather, I don't know what's predicted there, but temps far south of there were high, and now very high ones still southwest of there, but in Reno are expected to be over 100. I know it's higher elevation. Yeah, this is in April. It actually ended up snowing and raining on this 27th, I believe, when he went out in here. Because it is at such a higher elevation.
It's littler. It's kind of tiny.
And the temperature, even if we went out, I don't know, maybe June or July would be a little bit better, but even camping out there in April and May, it gets down into the 30s, and with the wind chill, it'll feel like 20s. We camped out there in middle of May, and I had a tent and a sleeping bag. I ended up sleeping in the car. I woke up in the middle of the night and I went and slept in the car with the heater on. And that was in the middle of May. So just to kind of give you an idea how cold it gets out there. A typical desert with the elevation. It just gets cold. And then it gets hot. And that's just typical desert. That's okay, Heather. Yeah, during the summer it gets very hot. And it's probably doable, but in late April and even May, it's kind of delayed because of the elevation. So yeah, that's just the footage of us grid searching stuff, and we plan on going back out there um, probably this weekend, and hopefully go out for 2 days and be able to finish grid searching the this last little area. But speak on the other level, there were some weird things that have never happened when we've been out there. Um, we'd usually whistle. Um, Sometimes when we would, because we were pretty close together, but sometimes the trees get thick and you can't see each other, so we just kind of whistle sometimes or call out, make sure we're still kind of keeping side by side. Um, it was really weird because we were taking a break and I was sitting. We have two dogs with us, and they were sitting in front of me, and Bria was sitting down, and I heard this whistle. And the funny thing is, my hearing's not the best, but I heard this human whistle off in the distance, and I knew I heard it because the dogs' heads had snapped that way. And I asked Bria, I'm like, did you hear that? She said no. And then Ty, who was just off to the side about 10 feet away, I'd asked him, hey, did you whistle? He said no. And, but I knew I heard it, and I knew I wasn't the only one because both the dogs' heads had snapped. But it wasn't like a bird. It sounded like what we were doing, just like a, just kind of a regular human whistle. And then the weird thing is then Bria, it happened to Bria, and no one else had heard it. She heard a whistle, and then I think it even happened to Ty. And so it was just really weird. Some kind of odd things were going on. Um, anyway, it could just have a rational explanation. Maybe we're just tired and hearing things, and it could be just birds, but really weird. It was like one of us would hear something, nobody else would hear it, and then it just kind of rotated around. But again, it might just be out there that we're been out in the sun too long, and I don't know. Um, Lorelei, yay! I was wondering how it went starting from the beginning. I want to know if it was a rock. Oh, it was actually it wasn't even a rock or a shirt. It was actually cow dung. I think it's cow dung. It dries up and it looks like a white rock. And that's what it was. Actually, it wasn't even a rock. And I'll give you an example of the weird things that you see out here and makes drone searching so tough. That one. This one or the other one? So just like this. So I saw this earlier and I was kind of freaking out because I couldn't tell what it was. Keep in mind, I've got a smaller screen when I'm doing this. You guys can't see that. But, you come across something like that and you can't make it out and it's so tough. Now I do know what that is. It's a rock. I thought it was a log. I also thought it was some other things as well. But when you come across that, it's like, what the hell is that? But that is actually rock. Um, but it's weird. It almost looks like a turtle shell right here. And it almost looks like it's a log with the way it cuts in here. But it's actually rock, because you can actually see some of the rock coming out of the ground here. And this is just exposed rock. But I thought it was, at the first, I thought it was a body, which I knew it couldn't be because it's been 2 years. But when I first was flying over this, I could not make it out. Now, being able to see it on a bigger screen, I can make it out. But yeah, you see things like this, and it's tough because you don't want to leave any stone unturned, and there's so many things that you might see that could potentially be something. But again, so for the members of Patreons, I cannot tell you how important these next uploads are going to be, because I flew over a lot of this area that I'm talking about that they did not grid search. And that's not, again, a knock on them. They just didn't, in this entire case, they've never had enough people to go out and properly grid search. And this area that I'm flying over could be the area. Out of everything that I have flown over, this would probably be the most important drone footage. Again, I think there's still some areas I wasn't able to get everything, but I would say I probably covered 70 to 75% of the area that we believe could possibly have something in there. Wonder if any ranchers picked them up. There's always those, what if possibilities. Certainly, and for the family's case, I would say I hope you made it out. Of course, but no one's ever came forward. But it's certainly a possibility. Yeah, cows are up there, Blackwoodder. Yeah, cows are up there. I've got so much footage of cows out there. Wallflower, thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. Thank you so much. That'll help us in the aid. We're not giving up. We feel like we're just right on top of them, and that's why this is the first time we've ever done the proper grid search with the surveyor tape, because we feel that confident that he could be right in this area right here. And it just, with only the three of us, it's still going to may take a day or two to cover every inch of that. But again, just one last time looking at the diagram, and I'll get to some comments. And I'll play a little footage while I get to the comments here. Where is that? Where is it? But again, like I said, this is a recreation, I should say. I said reenactment. It's a recreation of the actual document. It's not 100% accurate, but this is kind of what it looks like. And there's just tons of huge pockets that they just didn't get to because they just didn't have enough people. And the fact that they did the grid search here and they did a lot of searching near the road almost tells me this is like a bottleneck. And then we know that he probably didn't go over this ridge here. He could probably went over where it's lower over here. Certainly possible. I don't know, but everything brings us right here. So, but play some of that drone footage from the peak real quick. Here is that. But yeah, I'll be uploading that for the members and Patreons. Got some interesting shots and some funny thing that happened. Almost lost my drone. Thank goodness I didn't, but yeah. Yeah, Bungee Cord, we did. We checked it out. Nothing in there. Like I said, it's not really a cave. It's just a pocket. But yeah, no bones. Nothing in there. Would have been something good for shelter, but I would think he just wouldn't have the energy. Again, it took us 2 hours. We did not think it was going to take probably took 2.5 hours to fully get up to the big peak because we kind of went. There's like 3 humps. Where this formation's at is at the biggest peak, and we got to the littler one, but it still took like another half hour to get to the main peak. And I mean, we were just exhausted. But yeah, nothing in there. I know some of that looked like bone, but that's actually stick. So yeah, we at least were able to clear that out. Yes, Ashley. I will. I apologize. I've been going out, but yeah, I will. I will get back to you. And if I don't, Ashley, please email me again. If I don't get back to you in a couple days, please. I don't mind if you email me again. It's only because we've been going out and I've just been just super busy. But I usually get back and I'll be more than happy to feature somebody. Drone phone home are always comes home if it loses connection. We learned that after many drone trials. Yeah, drones have gotten much better. They now every time you take off, the home updates. Yeah, drones have advanced immensely over the past few years. But yep, one more shot of us peeking that, which was pretty wild. We saw wild horses, which I think I have some footage of. I wish I had drone footage of it, but they saw us coming up and they were like, which I'm happy. They kind of went away from us because again, they're wild horses and I'd say they're probably more dangerous than the mountain lions out there because they'll just stomp, trample over you. Um, but yeah, it was really beautiful to see that. But at least we were able to knock that off. That yeah, he did not go west over that ridge. There's just no way in hell. No way in hell. After all that, all have what he had trekked through. As we pause right here, just to show you guys, this is actually a perfect spot. So this is Palamino Ridge. His truck was all the way over here. And that kid, teenager, he went up and over this ridge. And this is probably not the best because of the view. But there's this huge valley in between this ridge and Cherry Creek. And then he came up, kind of went over, came down, and then this is where the water source was. And then almost kind of went up part of this ridge. And then that's kind of the last footsteps. And then from there, assumed he may have kind of started heading back north. At least that's what we believe, and everything that we have looked into as far as documents, that's what has led us to what we're searching. Yeah, well, that's one word for it. We have, yeah, but we feel like we're just on top of him. So for the members of Patreons, I'll have some stuff uploaded maybe tomorrow, if not Friday for sure. Because I still got to do some videos. I know there's some stuff going on with other cases. I know there's something with Micah Miller that happened. We'll probably do some of that. But with Aiden's case, I feel like this could be it if he's out there. Glad you're resting now. Yeah, after this live, I am going right back to bed. I am so pooped. And then, I'm not going to bed for the rest, just to take a nap. I'm still pooped. I'm bitten, burnt, not that badly burnt. I put there's just a few spots that I forgot to put lotion on. I burnt the back of my neck. I can feel it peeling. and then I burnt the tips of my hands. They were the only thing exposed. But it could be a lot worse. So, Chris Squirrely, Chris, you're awesome. So much out there on your part of this young man and his family. Thank you again. Thank you so much. And again, I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. So, it's just as much as your guys' support that keeps me going. Yeah, I need to do that. Thank you, Susie. I know I was looking at that too. Probably not at the top of my list, but yeah, I need to do that. Oh, the bone. The bone. Bone. We found a lot of bones. Keep in mind, we're in an area that's close to the main water source or a main water or a source of water in that area. And there are a lot of bones out there. If we come across bones, what we do is we'll if we come across bones, we'll search around the area, and usually 9 out of 10 times you'll find the rest of the bones or whatever's left, and 99% of the time it's animal. But there has been a few times where we've came across a bone that looks kind of suspicious. It looks small enough because a lot of the bones you find are kind of bigger bones, especially for the cows. They're definitely bigger bones. But any bones that we're not 100% sure of, I'd take those home. And then eventually, when I have enough, I'm just going to send those, I don't know, either to the sheriff out there or whatever. But so any bones that we're not 100% sure, I do take those. And I double bag them. They're in a plastic bag. So just in case they may be something. And I figure instead of handing a bone over every time we go out there, kind of collect them, we document every bone that we pick up, where we picked it up, so we can always go back to that area. So, a lot of precautions that we take in this case. Yeah, I know. I just saw that too, the Micah press conference. That's so wild. So, I'm happy for the family that something's going on. If anybody PayPal or Venmo, thank you so much. Sometimes I don't get the update right away, but if you did, thank you. Really helps. But with that, I'm gonna head out. I'll have a video out tomorrow, and then a live Friday, and I think Saturday is when we go back out again. But again, this members and Patreon drone footage is going to be huge. Of course, I'm going to go through it first, but this is going to be over the area that we think has the highest probability out of any area that we've been to. So it's going to be big. So with that, thank you to the wonderful mods being here. And we'll be back live Friday. I'll have stuff for tomorrow. And I'm going to go get a nap in. And thank you again so much for your guys' wonderful support. So with that, we'll do a pet outro, and we'll see you guys Friday.
Come and sleep is from me.